Happy Friday. Happy first sexy Friday of the month for December. Also our last month of the year. This month we are really just going to talk about all the things that Sam and I did throughout the last year. It's been a really interesting thing because Sam and I don't always recognize all the things that we have done. And we almost didn't go there or go here today. We were actually going to start with our relationships and sexuality series. But instead we decided that it's always good just to reflect on like where you've gone, what you've done, and all of those types of things as well. So I am just waiting for Sam to join. Hopefully she will be here soon and we can get her in as well. And we are really excited to talk about kind of all the things that we have done within the last year. It's kind of been a whirlwind year for us. We've actually done a lot as we were actually looking at it and reviewing it. And so it's really interesting just to kind of see written down all the things that her and I have done together within the last year. Looks like she has joined, so hopefully no technological issues today. That is it. She will be right on here with us. And we don't have any issues. Every once in a while we have some issues, and we did it. Yay! I was just saying, I can't believe how much we've actually done in the last year. Like when I was looking over all of those things, we sometimes don't give ourselves enough credit.
I'm so glad we're doing this episode because when we list it all out, it's so much more than we thought.
It is. It definitely is. Well, today is actually episode 36, which is also kind of nuts to me that like we have been doing, this is our 36th episode of Sexy First Fridays. It kind of just feels like we just started doing it, even though I know we've been doing it for a while. So it's kind of wild to see 36 as the number episode that we're having. But today is our year in review, and then we have some tips for the holiday. I'm going to start with just kind of our standard introduction. I know many of you already know who we are, but every once in a while we get new people that hop on, and we always like to let them know just a little bit about who we are, why we're doing this, and our background. So I'll introduce myself, and then we'll have Sam introduce herself. So my name is Lyndsey Fraser. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a certified sex therapist and an IA accredited professional who has a practice in South Minneapolis, where I have practiced. Somebody asked me this other day, going to my 14th year of practice, which just seems really wild to me that I have had a private practice for 14 years. Also, again, just like I, just got here, but nope, been doing this for 14 years. And then I specialize in relationships and sexuality, utilizing the Enneagram. And also, I often forget to tell people my Enneagram type, which we're not even talking about Enneagram type per se today, but I am a social 9. How about a little bit about you, Sam?
Perfect. I am a sexuality researcher and an Enneagram coach specializing in sexuality, intimacy, and relationships. And I studied with the narrative Enneagram. I am a sexual type 5.
All, all right. I
So
think you're going next.
got those end of the year Swiss cheese mind going. So I'm going to just kind of recap. So what we've been doing for Sexy First Friday lately is that we just completed our Sexuality Basics series. So that was a series of 3 episodes on sexuality basics, not so much to do with Enneagram. We normally, if you know us, we normally do everything Enneagram and sexuality, and that is our specialty. We want to kind of show folks that we have a lot of expertise in different areas. So we did our Sexuality Basics series. And then we're going to start in January with our Relationships Basics series, followed by our Enneagram Basics series. But we decided to kind of just take a pause in between our Sexuality Basics and our Relationship Basics series to recap what we've done this year over 2025 and offer some Enneagram related tips for the holidays, both general tips and intimacy tips.
So let's talk a little bit about what we have done within the last year. We actually started off the year strong with our Enneagram type and sexuality training in March. So if you had the opportunity to attend that live, which you can also still order that actual workshop as well, it was recorded and is available to you. But we talked all things about Enneagram type and sexuality in that particular training, and that was really exciting. It was actually a follow-up to the Enneagram instincts and sexuality training that we had done in November. So second workshop that Sam and I had done together, just the two of us, not with other people that we were doing presentations and things with. So kind of started off outside of Sexy First Friday, our little venture together, which I think was really awesome, and just kind of how that has all unfolded. And then we had a very busy summer. We thought it'd be a great idea to do triple presentations and apply for all kinds of things. So we did a presentation for actually two presentations for the IEA International Association, which was actually in Minneapolis this year, which was so beautiful because Sam got to come stay with me, and it was great to have her in my home. And so not only was it like we were doing these presentations together, but like she also got to come into my home and see a little bit more about like how my family runs. And I had gone and visited her last November, so it was really nice to kind of have her come and see a little bit more about me and my family as well. But we were extremely busy. We did that the hunt. I always get the name wrong for this one. Hunt, gather, and mate. One for the IEA. That was just the two of us on Enneagram instincts and sexuality. And then we did the Enneagram After Dark thing as well with Misty Rainwater, who is also one of our other colleagues that we have done quite a bit of work with as well. We've had the opportunity to present with her in Sweden and San Francisco. I was like, twice. I know we have. What were those places? You know, you're right. I'm a little Swiss cheese, a little bit like, ooh.
It's the end of the year. I don't know what's going on.
But yes, so we have done quite a few presentations. Actually, we were just talking about you, Misty. We were saying we've done a couple. We did a couple presentations with Misty as well, and so that was pretty exciting to kind of do both of those. And then we had our Enneagram and Sexuality for Transformed Relationships training in person. We were blown away by how many people showed up. We had dreamed that we would have 40 participants live, and we had exactly 40 participants live, which was so wild.
Was all that the room could hold, by the way.
Yes, it was like it was the maximum amount of people we could have, and like we never imagined, I think, when we started this venture together, that we would have a full room of people who wanted to see us live. We got such wonderful feedback from that particular in-person workshop. It was for therapists as well as for people that were looking for personal growth. And we had did we have about 50-50? Or maybe it was like 60% therapists and 40% people there that were there for personal growth. And it was really just a really interesting and beautiful kind of experience to have, and also give some tools for therapists on how to show up differently. Anything you would add sort of about that particular workshop, or things that stood out to you?
A couple of things I wanted to add. One, going back to our International Enneagram Association conference presentations, which we did this all in one weekend. So it was 2 on Friday, and then on Monday we were teaching all day. So we were very tired, to the point that we were literally laying on the floor of conference presentation rooms after everyone left the room. I wanted to say that for our presentation we did together, Hunt, Gather, Mate, which is on the instincts. Planning to turn that into a paper, hopefully, God willing, in 2026, that folks can read. So if you didn't make it to the conference, you can kind of get the information, the theory model of that when that comes out. I want to say that. I want to also say that the presentation we did with Misty, who was here in person. Hi, Misty. that that was quite ambitious. We took on doing a interviewing, the three of us interviewed a 9-person panel of every type about sexuality. So you can imagine recruiting for that was quite difficult to find a 5 and a 9, for example, that would speak openly about sexuality in front of a room of 75 plus people. And it was so rewarding and great to do it. And then taking us back to the workshop we taught that Lyndsey was talking about, Enneagram and Sexuality for Transformed Relationships, that we were also able to offer continuing education units for that for therapists and counselors. And that was really exciting as well to be able to do that. So that's all the stuff I wanted to add for the first half of the year. We're only at July right now.
I know we did. It's interesting because, like, I think when you and I chat, I'm like, oh, which we'll talk more about, but like, oh, we haven't been doing that much and we've been kind of like rusty. And then, like, you write this out and we're like, oh, we did a whole lot actually within the last year. It's just that we had to take a little rest time towards the end of the year. What was also really beautiful about that in-person training that we did is that we had our wonderful videographer and kind of colleague extraordinaire, TJ. How do you say his last name? Ingracia?
Yeah.
Ingracia. Yeah, I'm always afraid I'm going to say his last name incorrectly. I will say, if you ever need videography work done, I am so impressed by the work that TJ did, and I really want to point that out. He is also a self-preservation one, which, you know, I mean, they're going to be a stickler for details, and there's a reason why he does this work so well. But like, we have gotten compliments from people that have taken this. We created it into a self-paced course. I should clarify that. So we created it into a self-paced course that people can take and have been earning CEUs. And we've had, I think, 11 or 12 people now actually take that self-paced course and have got wonderful, wonderful feedback. And like, I was like, so, I mean, I know he's gonna be like embarrassed about us saying this, but like, I was so impressed with his work to the point like it was better than I imagined it could be. And just even how he cut it up and like how it's just a really nice chunked into, like, you can just kind of like watch one little section, right? Even though it's a 6-hour training, you have this like wonderful opportunity that you can keep going back to different chapters. And like, even like when my really good Enneagram 9 friend that I travel with sometimes, Brooke Schmidt, was like, this is one of the most beautiful things that I've seen. Like, I've gotten feedback, and like, we got some feedback the other day, and I was like, wow, like, I forget like how much we know and how much people have learned from us. And it was just really beautiful. I almost wish I could read the feedback that that individual gave, but it was just like, we've gotten, you know, when you do surveys, right, like, people don't have to put a lot of information in there. And we've gotten these like beautiful feedback from people where they've actually written things in and said how thankful they were. Like, what haven't I learned? I can apply this to my own life and my client's life. And like, that was really the whole idea behind the creation of this to begin with. And it feels so wonderful that people are actually getting what we hoped out of it and what we wanted them to get out of it.
Oh, I was gonna add that the self-paced courses, it's our exact same course that we taught live, the 6-hour course, but like Lyndsey said, it's into like 15 to 20-minute increments. And again, the production quality, like, we're not patting ourselves on the back here because we didn't do the production, but it is like off the charts production quality. The feedback we're getting from people who are both live in person and who've taken the self-paced course, which I actually was blown away by, is that they've done couples therapy like for years and no one has ever mentioned sex to them. You know, this is people who are there for, you know, personal growth work, and they're getting a lot of that information that they missed over years of couples work on sexuality just from the course. So we know that that's a major blind spot in couples work, that a lot of therapists don't even touch on sexuality when it's such an important part of intimacy. And that's one of the cool key pieces of feedback we've been getting, both in person and for the self-paced course, from people who are there for individual growth. And then from counselors and therapists, we're getting a lot of feedback about how easy to use our kind of theory model is for helping their clients. So yeah, we've been really happy with what we've been hearing, and we spent, you know, the months after we taught that in person, like turning it into the self-paced course along with TJ's help. Misty says, yeah, it's her too. It's crazy how many therapists won't address sex and they feel uncomfortable with it, because they didn't get any training on it themselves, or if anything, maybe one course or a piece of one course in school. So we want to help people become more comfortable so they can help more people.
And then after that, Sam and I needed a big old rest. When you have, what's really interesting, sort of when you have our Enneagram type, where we have a 9 and a 5, like we are also, when you think of like energy capacity and ability, like we are actually the two lowest energy types for multiple different reasons, right? And it was really interesting, in the sense of like we really just needed to take a much needed rest, though we did still launch a newsletter. So we weren't like completely snoozing, but we did really need to just kind of take a rest. And you probably noticed that maybe we didn't post on Instagram as much, or you weren't seeing as many things kind of come out from us. We were showing up on Sexy First Fridays and we were present, but it was sort of like that ability. Willie's like rest left off. But it just was really interesting, sort of that, and kind of like what would come with that. And I think one of the things that Sam and I were talking about too is sort of that like pressure, which we'll talk more about, but that pressure of like that, how our country is sort of like an Enneagram 3 type, right? And that pressure of like how we think we should always be productive in doing. And like both of us, I think it's kind of a vulnerable thing to share, but I know that Sam agrees with us. There was a little bit of like, oh, we should be doing more and we're not. And like, what does that mean? And, oh, like if only I were an Enneagram 3, I could just keep going. And, and it's a really interesting thing because like in my therapy practice, and I'm sure that I tell people all the time how important rest is actually for creativity and to actually show up in productivity. And it's just a really interesting thing because it's like, we actually did a lot and we really needed to rest. And it's okay to sort of rest as well. Anything you would add to that piece at all, Sam?
I think like there's a lot to be said about that, but we're lucky that we often are really balanced in terms of when I will get so tired I can't function, then you have a lot of energy. And then when you're so tired, you really need a rest, and I'll have a lot of energy. So luckily we can kind of carry our collaboration forward even when we're resting. But I'm really happy we took the you semi rest over the fall. Although, like you mentioned, Lyndsey, we did launch our monthly newsletter. And do you want to say about the ebook?
Yes. And in the background, in the scenes, Sam and I have been toiling away and we have created a sexuality and Enneagram or not workbook. It's an ebook with some processing prompts and things like that. I don't want people to think like, oh, you're going to open this up. It's actually mostly information with a little bit of processing prompts so you can kind of get all of that information in. One of the things that I have really wanted and Sam has really wanted is like also having things that were more accessible to people that maybe can't afford to come to our courses, or maybe you don't have the time capacity to show up for a workshop that's 90 minutes, or it's harder for you because you've got small kids at home and you really want to watch, one of our workshops, but it's like it's easier for you to have something that you can read in pieces and let. But it's really a culmination of all of the things that her and I have done and all of the things that we have brought forth in Sexy First Fridays and the workshops that we're doing, and really just hoping people can have more tangible things to look at and learn kind of through that ebook. And that's actually like it's basically done. We're just in the process of finishing up some editing, things like that, and it should be out mid-December. Right now, what's also really awesome with that is like we do have a pre-sale rate of $27 that will go up after it's released. So if you want to get, that kind of special discount now, you can, it's in our bios, or you can DM Sam and I and kind of get that access to that too as well.
Perfect. And like the other thing I would add is, of course, we were doing all along. We were doing Sexy First Friday, of course, throughout all of that. Starting at the beginning of the year, we were finishing up our series of episodes on each type that we had launched in 2024. And then moving into, we covered look-alike types, applications of sex in the Enneagram for therapy and personal healing, and then launching into our sexuality basics series. So of course, we were always showing up on Sexy First Friday as well. Well, that's a recap of 2025. We kind of did this as a favor to ourselves as well, because we really do sometimes forget all of the things we're working on. But we wanted to also offer some tips for the holidays, just for fun. And we're going to be focusing on repressed instincts for this. So, just a little bit of a hint for 2026, we will be launching some things focused on repressed instincts, and we're really excited about that. I won't say too much yet, but let's get ourselves started talking about that now. So if you're here and you don't know what a repressed instinct is, I'm assuming most folks know what the instincts are. There's three of them: sexual, social, and self-preservation. And the idea is that we all have a dominant one, which is where we leak the most energy, but we all also have a repressed one, which is what we are not giving enough energy to. That's the aspect of your being that people are like, don't you want to work on that more? Don't you want to care about that? And you're like, no, I don't think it's important, until you kind of get along later in your life and you realize, like, I really have some blind spots in this arena. That would be your repressed instinct. So we have some other episodes on this. I won't go too much into it, but if you're here and you don't know, that's what it is. So I'm going to offer a quick tip for each repressed instinct, as well, a general tip, as well as an intimacy insight, and we can sort of chat about that for a little bit. So starting off with our social blind, social repressed people. And I had done a story on this, if you saw that. This is a mirrors some of that. So for social blinds, like the general holiday tip is start a group text or call a friend that you're not seeing in your holiday gatherings, because what social repressed people tend to forget is that relationships actually require tending, like a garden. Social repressed people often feel like you plant it and you walk away and it just grows forever, and they forget to water, So it's especially important with people you don't see a lot in person, social repressed folks, to just tend to the garden of the relationship. Just reach out, ask how they're doing, just start a chat, start a group chat. That's my sort of general tip, our general tip. But for intimacy and sexuality, tending really matters there too, especially when you're apart physically from your partner. Social repressed people can just forget about them, basically, and just don't talk to them at all when they're away, and that can be really hurtful. So, send a sweet message, send a sexy message. And then, Lyndsey, do you want to say anything else about sort of tending when you're in person with your partner for social repressed?
I think with social repressed too, like when you're like at an event or a party, like really making sure, well, it's be good for anybody in general, like especially your sexual instinct dominant or your social dominance, right? But like just going and like touching their back or saying hello or noticing that you're there with them, all of those kinds of things as well. As a social dominant myself, this was like a huge aha moment for me, for people that had social in the repressed position, because I used to think like I didn't matter to them. Like it used to be really painful. It was like when I'm with them, especially if they were in sexual instinct dominant, which is a bit more intense. Actually, it's like you're all into me, you're excited about me, you're chatting with me. I feel like I'm important to you, and it's like out of sight, out of mind. You don't matter anymore. And for me, as a social dominant, where we're like really good about like that building and that connection. Like remember last time we had connection with someone, I'd be like, what did I do? Do they not like me anymore? Did I do something socially, like a social foible, and not was not aware of it? And what I learned, it was really eye-opening. This actually happened in San Francisco when we were doing a social panel, is that they don't even think about it. It's actually the way that they feel about you and think about you is like exactly the same. They just figure like, I care about you. You're important to me. And so I think it's just really important to kind of remember sort of what happens for people on the other end of that isn't true for, like, actually it can be really painful and hurtful. And like with relationships too, it's like, are they not into me anymore? You know, like they're really into me. Now they're on vacation. I have not heard from them once. Do they care? And in their head, oh yeah, I still am really into them. I'm just like with the people that I'm with right now, and that's who I am attentive to and stuff like that. So it's just a very interesting sort of dynamic, especially from someone that is social dominant and like puts a lot of attention into tending and taking care of my sometimes overly, I'll be honest, tending to my relationships.
Willie says, this helps so much as a fellow social dominant. I have panicked about this often. Sexual dominant, sexual social, also I have panicked and felt really sad about this often. So social blinds, remember you're tending. I said social blinds is also a term for social repressed. It means the same thing. I have so much to say about this, but we have to get through the other ones. So for our sexual, people who have sexual in the repressed position, my tip for you for the holidays, like put on a bright color. Lyndsey has talked a lot about how much that can do to activate the sexual instinct. Put on a bright color, have a cocktail if that's something you do, and express your feelings passionately for the people that you are around at the holidays. Remember that expressions of love and interest that feel over the top to you, that's baseline for many people, that over the topness. And without it, sometimes your loved ones can feel that you're not interested in them. So the intimacy and sexuality corollary to this is that surrendering to passion, just letting yourself be carried away in the moment, carried away in the passion. That really matters for building a connection, and that's something that can feel really scary to our sexual repressed folks. Lyndsey, what would you add?
It's really interesting because like I have not been good at as a sexual instinct repressed person myself. So I'm going to call myself out on some things here. I sometimes am not good about expressing like my intensity or actually how I feel about somebody. Interestingly enough, I actually wrote a card to a really good friend yesterday and just kind of like gave it to her because I was like, I feel all these things about her, but I don't actually think I've actually told her. And like the response I got, because she didn't read it until later, she's like, oh my God, this was so like, you don't know how much this meant to me that you sent me this, you left this letter for me. I feel the exact same way. It was just like, I was like, oh yeah, I like need to let people know like the intensity. It's like we do feel the intensity as sexually instinct repressed peoples, but there's almost this fear of like, if we let it out, are we going to be out of control or overwhelmed by it? And so there can be like, it's kind of like it's inside of us, but it's like, ooh, that's kind of scary. I don't know if I want to express that intensity. But just how important I think it is to express that intensity and kind of surrender to that and let people know just kind of how passionate and excited you actually do feel about them in your life.
Perfect. And it's especially important for sexual instinct dominant people. I think just like we said, in social instinct repressed people, it's really important for social dominant people for them to tend. It's important for everyone, but same with this, it's really important for our sexual repressed people to be expressing their passion, their intensity for especially for sexual instinct dominant people. Um, Moving on quickly, I think we could do hours on this, and maybe we will in the new year. So, our self-preservation repressed people. My general idea of a tip is sort of to start a holiday budget or at least resolve to tracking your holiday spending. Self-preservation repressed people usually really like bristle at this. Just remember that systems, boundaries, and containment are good for you. You know, that far from undermining your freedom, they actually allow you to fully express yourself and feel safe. But the intimacy corollary to this that Lyndsey and I talk about is self-containment and boundaries actually keep your body safe when it comes to sexuality and intimacy. We have reports from our self-preservation repressed people about, pushing their bodies too far, basically, in sexuality and actually getting hurt or just uncomfortable from that. So just remember in intimacy, like that containment, those boundaries, that's actually really good for you. What would you add, Lyndsey?
I mean, I think it's all the things that you're saying. Like, sometimes I've seen people, push their bodies too far to like actual physical pain or like, in those kinds of things. And then that impacts your ability to connect or be close to someone because now your body's going to force you to have to take care of it. And so when you're becoming more aware of, or how you spend money, right? Sometimes that can cause friction or discord within the relationship as well. And now you have some disconnection happening, especially if you don't have if your partner's a self-preservation or a social dominant, or maybe has self-preservation in the second position, like you can then have some disconnection around that and just understand like the importance, even just in relationships, about like how tending to the body actually helps you have deeper connection to the self and others. If you're not resting and you need to be resting, then you're crabby and irritable with your partner, right? These are just really important. If you haven't fed yourself, now you're snapping at them. I'm a huge like hangry person, but I'm also self-preservation second. So I'm really good at taking care of that particular need for myself. But it's just like how those things, like when we don't tend to the body, sometimes I think people that have self-preservation, the repressed position, don't really think it affects the others around them. Like, oh, it's just affecting me. Well, just understand that it really does have impact or effect on everyone, not just you. You're not taking care of your body or your basic needs.
Well, we're already almost at the end. We were going to talk a little bit about sort of how we've grown individually and in our partnership over the year, although we only have about 1 minute to do that. But I think one thing is that we really pushed ourselves to the edge of what was possible for us by doing all those presentations at once over the summer. And I think like we barely made it. At one point, I remember sitting down and like having a snack together and just being like, it was right before our first one or right after our first one. I can't remember. I was just being like, how can we do this? We're low energy types, like, and we really had to lock in on and like supporting ourselves and investing in ourselves and each other in order to do what we committed to. So I think we kind of pushed ourselves to the edge and then expanded, and I really love that.
I was just going to say a really important thing to add just about like when, we talk about relationships and intimacy. And at the same time, while Sam and I work together, I think this is something that we could bring in a certain point in time is like, we have to work at and tend to our relationship. And it's like a beautiful balance that I don't think other people see or notice about the two of us, in the sense that we are often each other's like motivators. So it's not unusual for one of us to be like in energetic, creative motivation place, right? And then it's sort of like as the other person kind of is like ebbing out or can't be, that the other person is like meeting them. And it's like this very beautiful flow that of creation between the two of us, that none of this could exist if the two of us were not in relationship together and didn't know how to navigate our relationship, right? And like we have had like also as like a 9 and a 5, I think like that ability to share the self, or when you feel hurt, or when like these, I do things in relationship with Sam that sometimes are very difficult with other people in my life. So like not only is she like a business partner, but it's like I have the courage and the assertiveness to tell her like, hey, that thing that you did kind of hurt me, and vice versa, right? And we can navigate it in a way that it never becomes a barrier in how we interact or we relate. And I think that there's some beauty that a lot of people do not see because they're not us, that happens in the background, but you see it in how we do our work. You see it in the things that we create. And this is a very unique creation that her and I have together that I would not be able to do with anybody else in my life, professionally or like even personally in a lot of ways. And so I just want to say thank you for that. And that people, I don't think, know that. And I think we could talk more about sort of the relationship that we have as well, and how that helps create what we have for you.
I couldn't agree more with everything you said, Lindsay. And there's so many things that I am just incapable of doing as a person and a professional that you like do for us, that without you, like I would just be in my house having ideas that were probably good ideas, but no one would ever hear about them. So I'm so grateful for you for so many reasons.
And I think to wrap up, just talking about like the ebook release. Sometimes we're not good at like promoting the stuff that we actually have available to you. That ebook is going to be released mid-December. Like I was saying, there is a pre-sale or pre-release sale on that for $27. The links are in our bios, or you can also DM if you have more questions. We are super excited to get that into your hands. But that also being said, is we are going to have a holiday sale. We did have a Black Friday sale. We're going to have a very similar sale. I don't know exactly quite what it will look like, but coming mid-December through the end of the year, all of the workshops and the pre-recorded workshops that we've done, as well as our self-paced course, will also all be on sale. Knowing too that e-course, that self-paced course, that e-course, it's ebook, not e-course. I guess an e-course too. The book, the self-paced course also has the 5.5 CEUs for marriage and family therapists in Minnesota. And knowing that you're going to need those CEUs by the end of the year here, and that does include your 2 cultural CEUs that you need in one of your ethicals. So that's also a really great way to get those last CEUs in. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any other questions, and we will see you next month in January for our start of the relationship series. And as you've been seeing, because I've been giving teasers, we are going to be talking about the relationship cycle and just how that impacts relationships, and also just kind of like the myths that we have about what relationships should look like. And then we're going to have 2 more relationship basics series. And then as Sam said, we're going to move into Enneagram basics as well. Thank you so much. Wonderful to see you. We had lots of people kind of pop in and out today. It was great to see that as well. And have a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you in January. Bye, Sam.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Bye.